Well, good morning and welcome to Breakfast Xtra. My name is Mazino Peel, as usual. Now, last week we stood here and we talked about what was happening in Surulere, the tension, the whispers and the names that were traveling faster than official statements. And we spoke about the reported friction between Femi Gbajabiamila and Desmond Elliot. At the time, it still looked like Lagos politics. Well, this week, it all changed. It started looking like an eviction notice. Because now Desmond Elliot has stepped down out of the Lagos APC primaries, and not with the energy of a man concluding a campaign, no, more like somebody who arrived at the football pitch only to discover that the referee, the linesman, the supporters club, and even apparently the football itself had already picked another team. He spoke about intimidation, he spoke about exclusion, about supporters being blocked, about a process that no longer felt competitive, and we saw that on social media. Then he withdrew, and just like that, a race became a press release. Now, we reached out to him for this program. He actually declined, respectfully, like a gentleman, and I quote what he says. He says, "Hi, sir, I wouldn't want to grant any interviews at this time. Too sensitive." I tried calling back, and he did try calling back. Gentleman, like I said. But honestly, in Nigerian politics, once somebody says the matter is sensitive, you just know subtitles have appeared under the situation, because silence in politics is never silence. Silence is usually a paragraph wearing a mask. And sometimes it means strategy. Sometimes it means caution. Sometimes it means exhaustion. And sometimes it means I've checked the room temperature and I've discovered that I'm the only one in the room pretending that the air conditioning is still working. Nod, nod. In any case, beyond the headlines, there's something deeply fascinating about that moment. A man who has been inside the structure for years suddenly discovered the structure can continue moving without informing him that the direction has actually changed. And this is the difficult thing about politics here in Nigeria, especially here in Nigeria. People should imagine power as something stable, something earned and then protected by loyalty, protected by consistency, even visibility. But power is rarely still. It shifts quietly. And sometimes, by the time a politician realizes the center of influence has moved, the movement is already complete. And the painful part is not even losing. I mean, politics allows losing. Democracy should allow losing. The painful part is discovering that while you were preparing for a contest, other people may already have concluded the outcome behind the scenes. Because we like to describe politics as a competition of ideas and public trust. But many times, politics functions through arrangements, through layered arrangements, networks of understanding that are rarely announced publicly, but are often understood internally. And once those arrangements change, the atmosphere around a candidate can change with astonishing speed. And that is why stories like this carry weight beyond a single primary election. Because how quickly political belonging can become uncertain, like in this case. One week, you're presented as central to the structure. The next, the language begins to change, and suddenly the emphasis is on preserving peace within the party. I mean, take a look at Rivers State and similarly Fubara. And peace is one of those very interesting words in Nigerian politics. Because very often, peace does not mean consensus. It simply means resistance has ended. Now, to be fair, every political system in the world contains internal struggle. I mean, power naturally attracts negotiation, and that part is not unusual. What becomes concerning is when the public is left out to interpret political outcomes through silence, withdrawals, rumors, and carefully worded statements rather than through transparent processes. Nobody speaks completely, nobody explains fully. You simply begin to notice changes in tone, changes in movement behind the scene. And public confidence is gives way to, well, careful language. And gradually, the public is left asking the same question time and again. Who truly decides? Is it the voters? Is it the delegates? The primary, the party leadership? Or is it just structures within the system that already shape outcomes long before formal announcements are made? Because from the outside, our democracy can sometimes feel less like an open contest and more like a process whose conclusions are quietly understood before the public phase is actually beginning. And that is where this story becomes larger than just Desmond Elliot. Because when somebody within the political establishment begins to publicly suggest exclusion or sidelining, it inevitably raises a deeper question about participation itself. If insiders can feel politically displaced, what confidence is left for the ordinary voter whose only role is to appear periodically at the ballot box? And that's a deeper conversation underneath this moment about the power that moves quietly, about loyalty that can become conditional, about systems that present unity publicly while renegotiating influence privately. And again, like I said in the beginning, we did reach out to Desmond Elliot for a statement, and again, he declined respectfully but firmly. No further statement, he said. And perhaps that silence is the most revealing part of all of this. Because in Lagos politics, the real story is rarely just who stepped down. It is the larger question beneath it. At what point does stepping down stop feeling like a decision freely made and start feeling like the only remaining option? Well, ladies and gentlemen, think about this deeply. And if you want to listen to this again, you can always find it on YouTube and cogitate on what I've just said. My name is Mazino Appeal, and of course today I will be joined by Inamaso. Let's take a moment and we'll be back to start the show. Thank you for joining.
It's a very good morning from me and of course Mazino Appeal. I am Inamaso. Welcome to Breakfast Xtra. This morning we begin in Lagos, where concerns are growing over the planned maintenance and the possible closure of the Eko Bridge. For a city already battling with gridlock daily, many commuters and business owners are asking what another major traffic disruption could mean for movement, for productivity and daily survival. And from there, we take a closer look at our big report with the findings on the ground. Then, of course, the outrage continues following the abduction of pupils and teachers in Oyo State. Beyond the shock and the grief, the incident has reopened difficult questions about school safety, rural security, and the emotional cost of insecurity on families and communities. We examine the wider implications and ask what accountability should look like by now. Now, of course, on a Wellness Xtra today, we focus on obstetric, fistula, oh, that's a big word, and the millions of women across the developing countries who continue to suffer in silence from preventable childbirth injuries. We discuss maternal health care, safe motherhood, and why dignity and access remain central to women's health in Nigeria. And then later on, we turn to River State, where fresh political developments are once again reshaping conversations around power, alliances, and the future of opposition politics, as the familiar names reopen, of course, and reposition themselves. We also ask what these shifts could mean for governance and political stability in the state. And then beyond Nigeria, attention is also on the rise in the Benin Republic as Romuald Wadagni prepares for inauguration. What does this transition mean for democratic continuity and regional politics in West Africa? Our correspondents bring us the perspective from the ground. And of course, last but not least, growing health concerns across Central Africa as the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo raises fears beyond borders. We look at preparedness, public health responses, and what African countries must learn from previous outbreaks. It's a full morning full of conversations, context, and critical questions. Welcome again to Breakfast Xtra.
Good morning. Before they think that there's something between us, because I didn't introduce you after my my monologue, but hey, hi. How relieved were you that the Eko Bridge, that's what we call it, wasn't closed over the week?
I mean, I don't use it, so.
You don't?
Nope.
That's strange.
Don't use
you only have one option to getting to work?
I literally just use Third Mainland Bridge.
How much of Lagos have you seen thus? You haven't then?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, apparently.
I go where I need to and come back. That's how you stay safe in Nigeria.
But I'll tell you something. I think a lot of Lagosians were relieved. I think it was on Monday, was it now? When it was supposed to be closed, I had thought I had to be on the island and I had to make arrangements. So I had to ride my bike instead of drive my car and realized that it wasn't closed. However, I could also see how that affected plenty of Lagosians because they thought it was going to be closed. So they made other arrangements. And it kind of like, even still while it was fluid, still caused some restrictions. So yeah, if that could happen while it was open, I hate to see what's going to happen
when it's closed.
So, well, we'll have this conversation with Israel Iferoba when he comes through because he had carried that it was going to be closed. And I hate to think how he felt when it was left open. He must have felt like a bum. But hey, tell you what, let's do the papers now. Welcome once again. It's time for the dailies. Let's take a look at what the front pages will be presenting to you as you take one up this morning. We'll be starting from the Punch newspaper. Are you ready, Inam?
I am.
Okay then. Punch newspaper for a Saturday, we have this. And of course, the big headlines since all through the week. Oyo School kidnap, terrorists open talks, give conditions, teachers, pupils, abandon classes, family buries, shot teacher, beheaded teacher, childless despite 10 years. Marriage, family say. That's a very sad one. The backstories to all the victims will scare you, will cause you to, well, you will have to empathize. Being kidnapped alone is a very, it's terrible. And the question continues to persist. Why, after even over a week, are these, and they did say that the forest reserve had been cordoned off or surrounded, but yet we don't have any arrests, which is very unfortunate. We'll be taking a look at that. Israel also joins us on this conversation, remember. The top of the Punch newspaper, let's see, resignation gamble backfires for ex-ministers Adilabu, Tugar and Alkali. And a drugged WASC candidate spent ransom on sports betting. Ogun teacher? That's very scary. Still, bandits killed my husband, left me with burden of raising 5 children, says Imo widow.
Oh, no.
And U.S. orders green card applicants to apply from home countries. I thought that was the deal from before.
Me too, actually.
I was surprised. I saw that this morning. I'm like, how does it go from before?
It's very interesting.
Why I wanted to buy my coffin, says Adule. He's a Nigerian actor, and recently he was on social media and he talked about how much he had been through, even while everybody saw him on camera and thought that he must be doing good. So yes, don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes the stories are dark. That is it for the Punch newspaper. What do you have?
I think we've got the Guardian next, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
On the Guardian today, the headlines there, I think let's start at the top. It says, George Izua, judiciary is the greatest challenge to credible elections in Nigeria. I think that's very, I'm not going to say debatable. I think everybody agrees with that right now. And then I'm going to attempt to pronounce this name. It says Makanjuola's enduring legacies resonate in Lifetime Achievement Award. Congratulations. I've actually seen him in a few. I don't really watch Nollywood, but I've seen a few of his movies, so congratulations to him. And then the headlines on The Guardian this weekend say APC House of Consolidation or Disintegration. That's a very good question. Very good question. And then right underneath there, it says Lagos records a 61.52 success in the WASSCE, pays 1.4 billion WAEC fees for 45,598 students. I will commend them for that.
That's the first of many problems, because you have these candidates going in for these exams and then you have to wonder where the institutions are when they do pass these exams. And very, very often they do pass it in flying colors. And then you have the system itself, the education system, which is still
a failing one.
Failing. So yeah, congratulations now. Wait until the next chapter. That's all I'll say.
I'll comment later. And then in the blue right next to it there, it says Governor Mba showcases a scorecard and declares readiness to do more. You can find that on page 36. Right at the bottom, it says how seniority questions deepen Nigeria's 1966 crisis. Go on makes this and says Ojukwu driven by a personal ambition. And then right next to that, it says Ogun strengthens measures against infrastructure vandals amid renewed electricity drive, and then unveils plans to empower 100,000 residents through monthly cash transfers. Beg to differ. And then Supreme Court affirms acquittal of General Otiki. You can read that on page 36.
All right, should I move on to the Saturday Tribune?
Yes, please.
All right then, Saturday Tribune, big headline here. Salah, Muslims groan as price of ram hits roof. Let me tell you the price of ram. Now, there's a differentiation between the poor and the rich. Medium, 400,000 naira. And for the big ones, 2.5 million naira. This is where you get to know who your neighbor is. Ram. Yes.
Like sheep. From the sheep family.
Yeah, from the sheep family. I've never thought about the difference, but yes, they are sheep in a way. But yeah, we often look forward to these holidays, but unfortunately, it might seem that this time we might not be getting too many friends who are Muslim invite us over for the celebration.
Yeah, no, I think it's quite expensive. I was looking up because I was trying to do the conversions in Rand in South Africa, because for us, December, whether you like it or not, you have to have
some ram.
Ram, yeah, either
biltong.
No, no, not built on. Not built on.
All right, we've got more. Appeal court holds Accord, ADC, 3 other parties. The registration suit adjourns case till 27th October. And Insecurity, Oyo government suspends school excursions, field trips, inter-school sports. Who would take that risk at this time, I wonder? Slain teacher buried in Ogbomoso. And at the top, Nigeria is suffering epidemic of insecurity, epidemic of death, says Professor Tony Falola. And how our Fulani God organized our kidnap and shot one of us in the neck.
Our Fulani
God tells Oyo Court.
Wow.
Guard.
Oh, guard.
Yeah. And let's move on to the Saturday Sun.
You can take that.
Just so we can cover as many papers as possible. Go ahead.
You can take that.
Right.
The Saturday Sun. Saturday Sun at the top says, I wasted ransom collected from my victim's dad on a sports betting.
Same guy.
Wow. And then church usher dies by hanging for killing girlfriend. See? Oh, God. Let me not comment. And then days to Salah, ram markets await buyers. We'll have that conversation. And then Lagos rakes in a 2.6 trillion revenue, hit 1.87 trillion IGR in 1 year. That's a big one. And then right underneath there, the headlines for this morning says Ebola spreads panic in Nigeria. And then underneath it says doctors on red alert as NCDC states heightened surveillance on borders. And then underneath that, it says court voiding of INEC's timetable. Opposition parties' lawyers hail judiciary and knock INEC. Legal experts say INEC overstepped the constitutional boundaries. Electoral body heads to appeal court. Okay, the last one here is, I like what Linda said. She said, I'm tired of playing a good girl roles. Linda Ejo for Suleiman makes that comment. That's all on the Saturday Sun.
And I think fortunately or unfortunately, that's as much as we can take for the headlines or rather the dailies this morning. Pick some of them up. Maybe if you have a conversation you'd like to start, maybe put it on our YouTube page. Maybe we'll read them this morning. Let's start doing that, shall we? Alrighty now, tell you what, let's take a break. Let's get into the conversation. There's many of them this morning. We're going to be touching Benin Republic as we have our correspondents there waiting to tell us details of what's going on with the transition from government. And of course, here in Lagos, let's talk about the bridge and let's talk about the Oyo kidnappings. We'll be right back.
And in the big report this Saturday, the abduction of pupils and teachers in Oyo State has once again forced Nigeria into a painful conversation about safety, about education, and the growing vulnerability of schools. Reports surrounding the incident, including disturbing accounts tied to the killings of a teacher, have deepened public anger and fear across the country. Now, for many Nigerians, this is no longer just another security headline. It's a reminder that schools, once seen as safe spaces of learning and growth, are increasingly becoming targets. Parents are worried, teachers are anxious, and communities are asking how children are expected to focus on education in atmospheres shaped by fear and uncertainty.
Our correspondent Israel Ifirobo covered the story and he brings us this report.
Tension remains high in Orire local government area following the abduction of pupils, students and teachers from Baptist Nursery Primary School, Yaota, Community High School and LEA Primary School, Isiele.
Security is not the responsibility of government alone.
The Oyo State government says reports circulating on social media about the release of the victims are false and misleading. Security presence has increased in the affected communities with military personnel stationed at Community High School, while officers of the Nigerian Police Force and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, continue patrols and rescue efforts continue. Parents of the abducted children say they are living in fear and uncertainty. They recount how it all happened.
On Friday, I went to school, I went to paper. One day school, now ni wọ́n lọ rọ́ọ̀pù wọn àti principal. Dòní àárọ̀ yìí àti ìgbúrò wọn àmọ́ kò tá àwọn ọmọ wá.
Ní ọjọ́ Friday, ọmọ mi jáde láti ilé, ó lọ sí school. Saturday ni mo gbọ́ tí ìròbọ̀n dún ní school wọn. So mo ṣáà ti wá ọmọ mi tì láti ọjọ́ Friday, mi ò rí. So láti wà yẹn kò sálàáfíà lára mi, oúnjẹ kò ṣeé jẹ, ohun tí ẹ lè ṣe anything.
Ọmọ mi jáde nílé láàárọ̀ ọjọ́ Friday. Ó ń lọ sùkú. Ìgbà tó sì lọ sùkú, a sì ní ìpàdé nílùú wa à ń ṣèpàdé lọ́wọ́ náà la gbọ́ tí ìbọn ró gbàmùgbàmù tí gbogbo ẹ̀ sì fọ́jú pọ̀ kálukú ń sá àsálà lórí ntọ́sẹ̀lẹ̀ kó tó di pé ó léyìn ṣe gbàtà gbogbo ẹ̀ sá àsálà tán kálukú tó súré wá ọmọ rẹ̀ káàkiri.
We are appealing to government.
They are calling on the government and security agencies to ensure the safe return of their children.
You know, when they came, the community people were aware that they have come when they were hearing this gunshot. But on getting there, when they see the type of firearms they carry, they could not go near them. That's how it is in their presence that the children were marching into the bush.
kíjọba ràn wá lọ́wọ́ kán síjú àánú wò wá kán bá wa gba àwọn ọmọ yìí jáde àti principal láyọ̀ àtàlàáfíà kó mọ̀ sí wàhálà kankan àtàwọn tó wọgbó àtàwọn tó wà wọn kí wọ́n jáde láyọ̀ àtàlàáfíà.
Kẹ́mi wo lè save lágbègbè yìí.
Residents also expressed concern over rising insecurity, urging authorities to strengthen security around schools and rural communities.
àrírí látijọ́ ọmọ tán ti dálùú yìí lẹ̀ àrírí o.
So we are still appealing that governments will put more effort to see to the release of those people in the captivity. The forest is too wide. It's cut across Ogun State, Oyo State, Kwara State, Niger State.
Authorities say efforts are ongoing to secure the safe return of all abducted victims.
Today we've seen deliberations and collaborations between authorities, the military and of course the NSCDC, and indeed engagement with the community members, asking the question, when will the abducted students here from the community high school and the other schools in this area, when will they be released? We can see that efforts are ongoing to secure the release of the students and the teachers that are in the forest behind me here in Orire local government area, Ogbomoso in Oyo State. They are hoping, praying that very soon they will have answers to all the questions that they are asking here today. In Oyo State, for News Central, Israel Efirobo.
Stellar reporting there by Israel Efirobo. And at the heart of this story, there are questions about intelligence gathering, rural security, government response, and the long-term psychological effect on children and educators alike. And joining us this morning here, we have examining it, Israel Efirobo himself, News Central correspondent, and also joining via Zoom, Jude Ferrami, convener, 5 Star Movement. Jude, Israel, gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Jude, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Israel here because we're just done with his report. I wanted to ask some very critical questions before we get to your analysis of the situation. So, Israel, I'm very curious. This is proximate to Ogbomoso. I ask this question because it's a route that I take consistently.
When you drive?
Maybe even next month.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how proximate this is to other communities, because if this is a rural community, Ogbomoso itself is a big city. Give us an idea of the geography of where this happened, Orire.
Okay, good to be here, Mazino. Inam, good morning to you too. So yes, you should be careful on your next trip if you're going across that road, if you're heading, because I know you bike a lot. So yes, so where the attack occurred is inside Ogbomoso. When you get to Ogbomoso in itself, you still need to drive about 2.5 hours, to get to where this attack happened, and that's because of the bad road, basically. Yeah, so it may not take that time if the roads were accessible and in good condition. So yeah, so that's exactly where this location is, inside the village in Ogbomoso, as the Orire local government area. There are lots of villages across, and I know I took them there, I can't remember them right now, but there are lots of villages, as you move along, and they're all rural communities. They're just settlement here and there, and there is a close proximity to the forest, and that's the reserve.
That's the reserve.
That's the reserve. So the proximity from the villages to the forest is about 2 kilometers. This is exactly what the Oba of the town, told me when we spoke to him, and that is one major concern for them right now. The forests are good. They've been there for a very long time. but now do they still serve the purpose for which they were created, for which we were left, you know, to thrive in the first place? Now, it's just about 2 kilometers, you know, before you get to any village. You have the forest, you know, and now it is now a haven for these criminal elements. That's just the geography of the. Of course, there are undulating plains here and there, you know, but yes, this is just how the geography of the place is, and it makes it really difficult for anyone to really access the place, for people to go in there to even know exactly where and what is going on, where it is happening, where they are kept, you know, except you have high-powered intelligence.
Inam was very emotional during your report, weren't you, Inam?
I mean, I don't want to cry, but let me just keep asking the questions because, yeah, I think so much is going on in Nigeria, and it's like we're trying to dissect and take it in, absorb, answer. But Jude, I'll come to you. Thank you again for joining us. Now, we constantly, you know, react strongly after incidents like this take place. I'm not necessarily even sure if I want to ask you what the practical prevention measures should be right now, because clearly this is not something that's new. But, you know, for the sake of those that are listening, what are the correct measures that should be in play by now that we are struggling to implement?
Thank you very much, Hene.
It's Inam.
Inam.
Yes.
Inam, sorry. The first thing that I think worth saying is the families in Oyo State. We should all be thinking about them and praying for them. It's unfortunate we've gotten to this point in the country, but we're now on a trajectory. You can almost predict the next communities where this is going to happen. Last year in November, there were a number of kidnappings in Kwara State, and the communities along the borders. I'm sure your correspondent would probably have covered this well, or one of your correspondents in Heruku, where you had, you know, the nearest policing station or nearest, you know, kind of security infrastructure to them was thousands of minutes away. The same thing happens here. I hear your correspondent describing the community in Ogbomoso. This is a recurring pattern. There are lots of communities like, you know, Eruku in Kwara. There was this Akwa in Kwara State as well. Now we're talking about Orire. You know, in the way that our security architecture has been designed, you know, we have a security architecture designed for a Nigeria of 1990 or a Nigeria of 1980s, where the population is very small. You look at these communities, for example, go back 30 years, you don't find a lot of people living in these outskirts, you know, but now we're 200 million people. This fundamental issue is the security architecture for the country right now is outdated. And another very painful thing that I'm sure you guys would have noticed is an attack happens. There's a lot of security incursion into that area. You have a lot of soldiers, NSCDC, police officers moving in after the attack and try to, you know, save face, rescue the people. And then once that episode is gone, you move on. So I think that as a country, we're moving from episodal attacks, kidnapping of children from one community to the other, right? Without stopping to say what exactly is the design that is wrong here. I don't know, and it would be interesting again for any of your correspondents to look this up. Eruku was the community in Kwara State that was kidnapped last year, that was attacked last year. This same method, you know, policemen go there, the soldiers go there, they try to save the community members who were kidnapped, and then they move on. What's happening right now to the community members in Eruku, right? Is there a security infrastructure now there? And for all the other communities in the border areas where these terrorist elements can now operate in, you know, the thousands of kilometers of ungoverned spaces in the country, who is caring for those people? Who is thinking about the security implications for those people? Orire is Orire local government in Ogbomoso is what we were talking about today. But you would find that hopefully by God's grace, these children and mothers and the principal and the school officials are released in one way or the other. But what happens after? How many communities in Oyo State along that same corridor, Bomosho, are, prone to these kinds of attacks? And another thing that I'm really, really very scared of is you find now that there are no consequences, no obvious consequences for these bandits or these terrorists. So you know that they can move to the next forest and set up there. There will be no security architecture in those places for those community members.
Just a second, Jude.
The people there.
Just a second,
and
Jude.
then move on.
Jude, I have a question based on your analysis and Israel's experience, because I think Israel was in Kwara State when there was that kidnapping instance, if I'm not mistaken, Israel. Yeah. But then let me ask a question first before I come back to Israel. Now, do you think that we have these kidnapping occurrences happening in Oyo because of the army's methods that are going on in the north, seeing them flee down into states like Kwara and Oyo? Or do you think that their motive is economic at this point?
I think that if I were in charge, I would have thought that the implications of a lot of bombardments in the northeastern part of the country would be that the ones who survived those attacks would try to move to the rest of the country and then plan for that as well, right? So that's one. Secondly, in terms of economic implications, I mean, there's now the bandit economy that, a lot of people are now talking about. It's now become part of our lingua franca because it's a cyclical process, right? You can almost imagine that there's probably a group somewhere thinking, we don't know how much these Orire bandits are going to get. It enables them to take up that initiative again and say, okay, you know what, let's go into another ungoverned space, which I just mentioned, and then go kidnap people, right, and collect ransom and move on. So irrespective of whatever the motives are, I think that the security architecture that we have in the country, from the defense side to the policing side, is not just adequate for the Nigeria that we have today. The IGP of police, Tunji Diso, was saying earlier, a couple of days ago, that we need 2,000 more police stations. That the current number of police stations available to Nigerians today is not enough to police the country adequately. I tend to agree with that, but even much more further, that we need to get to the point where we're talking around state policing. Because, and not just state policing, but even community policing. This one anecdote before I allow you to go to Israel. The governor of Oyo State was mentioning how there is Amotekun, there are the local kidnappers, local vigilantes. From Israel's report, I read when the Hoba was mentioning that it was right in front of the local vigilantes in the community that the kidnappers were cutting the children away because they didn't have enough ammunition or they couldn't engage them because of the kind of weapons that they were carrying. So, motive or not, the security architecture for what we have in this country is no longer adequate. And it hurts me that the government of the country does not think that this is the first priority, that should be taken with all level of seriousness, because that's the way that's what I interpret it as.
All right, then, Jude.
You don't think that the security of the country and Nigerians at the level that it should be is worth paying adequate attention to.
All right, then, Jude. Israel, can you draw a line between the Kwara attack and the Oyo attack? Is there any proximity there to be made?
A lot of proximity, a lot of inferences to be drawn from these attacks that we have been seeing, especially coming down south. In Kwara State, it's almost same of the same, in the sense that, so from that report you heard, the Oba did say that this forest reserve that you see, the forest that is not a haven for these criminals, it cuts across about 4 states.
Kwara
inclusive, Oyo, Ogun, Niger State as well. So, and there may be more if we look at the geography very well. And it is a large expanse of land. I spoke to, because there were lots of surveillance while we were there, in the air, and I did hear them say that we had to refill at some point
because it was large.
That's how big, that's how massive the forest is. And when you have a place like that where criminals have taken over basically, it now becomes a huge problem, because the forests were not meant to have all these criminals in the first place. They were meant to be there, for environmental protection and all of that. But now it is now completely different. So when you have those forests cut across those states, and then you simply have these criminals that can now just infiltrate any community at will. So that is the similarity with all of these incidences. So I was saying to someone the other day, I said, as long as there is a forest, close by, you never can tell if there are criminal elements in those places. If they haven't attacked an area just yet, it doesn't mean that they're not there. That is that's a scary part. From Kwara State, from the Kwara attack, the Eko Church, the one in Eriko as well, down to what just happened now in Orire, in Oyo State. The similarities are just there. The forests, the bandits, they hide in this forest, close proximity to the villages, to the communities, and they can strike at will without any form of hindrance. Jude spoke about the fact that the nearest police station to a community. I mean, we were driving for hours and we didn't see any police station. But one thing that was very clear where we got there was the fact that there were lots of military presence on the ground, trying to secure the release.
Reactionary.
Yes, it was reactionary. Yes, that's what we'll call it. But then again, they were not built to fight this kind of battles. And that's the thing. And then Jude pointed to the fact that our security architecture has now gone beyond what it used to be. In the 60s, maybe in the 70s, maybe all of this can work, but it is not working anymore. So there needs to be a complete rejig of how we combat all of these things. The forest is there. What the community are saying that right now they need to take out the forest.
Oh, but
that's what they're saying. It's an extreme measure.
Very extreme.
But it is not realistic. But I think the government should be listening to what they're saying and find a way to make the forest not a haven for criminals, but it needs something that benefits the entire country.
Mazino is looking at me because he
I can see that you're heaving. You still
I'm
seem very emotional.
You know what? And I think the reason why I'm quiet is because I don't necessarily have a question. I'm just very concerned. And you look at it, Israel, and we're having these conversations. Last week we had Kirawa, and he was talking to us about the rehabilitation of bandits and the reintegration of them into society. But you look at the things that are on ground, and from a security standpoint as well, it's very alarming that in 2026, we still don't have the correct infrastructure for security in Nigeria. Oddly enough, in the makeup room, we're having a conversation with Chiwete.
We have a makeup room?
Oh, yeah, we do.
I'm joking.
We were having a conversation with Chiwete, and he was bragging about giants of Africa. I'm like, how gigantic are we when we cannot secure the security of 200 million people in Nigeria in 2026? So you look at it, and like Jude said, every other week you are anticipating that, well, if it's not Oyo, it's going to be somewhere else. Ideally, by now, we should be seeing military presence everywhere in Nigeria by now. But unfortunately, we don't do that. Our military system, in agreement with Jude, is playing catch-up. Once it happens, then that's when we see them running around holding rifles. I'm not sure if they can use the rifle, but...
Let me also quickly point out something. Jude mentioned it. It is not an industry.
Yes.
So
what is not an industry?
It is now an industry.
Of course.
So this ransom payment, whatever they get, it is now used to fill what they need, getting arms illegally into the country, and which is why the community members, the vigilantes, can watch and see them march the children into the forest. And they could not engage because they have firepower that is way above the grade of the vigilantes. So that's the thing. So there is money coming into that illegal system right now, and it is growing. That industry is basically growing. Banditry, kidnapping, ransom payments, and this is what the government needs to tackle head on. We've been talking about it for a very long time, but action must be taken now.
Well, the mere fact that till date, if people have escaped or people have been found, the government never clearly gives us an outline as to how they were found or how they escaped, gives us insights to say that there's a lot of hidden things behind.
Motives.
Yes.
Yeah, Jude, we didn't forget you. Our apologies. Jude, beyond public condemnation or press statements, what should accountability actually look like in an instance like this?
Very much. From all of us at the 5-Star Movement, one of the very key pillars of what we are advocating for is a decentralized policing and a decentralized security architecture. Nigeria, the Nigerian state today has lost the monopoly of violence across the entire geographical area of the country we call Nigeria. Non-state actors can act at will and kidnap and terrorize citizens, and the only response that is practically available right now is that reactionary, effort that we see every time after these incidents have happened. There are communities now, I believe, that I've read about that actually now pay these bandits. This is part of the bandit economy that Xtra was referencing that I mentioned earlier as well. There are communities now that have actually paying bandits for protection, so that for protection against other bandits in this country, right? So without further ado, there has to be a state of emergency on security in the country. And that includes, number one, bringing forward the legislative requirements that we need for state policing in Nigeria immediately, right? You have the Amotekun state policing initiative from the Southwest. And when this incident first happened, the first thing I asked myself was, why here's, this Amotekun initiative, why didn't this initiative in Oyo State, for example, right, curb this kind of incident? Why was it that we had Amotekun in Oyo State and it was not enough, to prevent this from happening? It's because the current legislative architecture that we have for state police in Nigeria is inadequate, right? There are state initiatives like Amotekun or community initiatives like Vigilantes that's just not enough. That's number one. There has to be immediately, as part of this state of emergency that needs to be declared on insecurity in Nigeria, right? The passage of the state policing initiative, as a serious effort that requires immediate attention, right? The second thing here is there needs to be a sense of prioritizing, investment into security in this country. And for the love of me, I don't know why, the security of lives and property is the very first duty of any government, right? Including dictatorships, right? Communist governments, not to talk of democratic governments. The investment in the security of lives and properties and the welfare is the first priority. If people can't, leave, if people can be kidnapped at will, look at the teacher who was beheaded, it means that there's no connection between the citizen and the state. There's no relationship if the state cannot protect the math teacher who was beheaded. So huge investment is into the state security architecture that evolves eventually, and into the national infrastructure that evolves eventually. I mentioned earlier that IGP Disu was asking for 2,000 more police stations. That's not even enough. But where's the conversation on those 2,000 police stations, right? Where's the conversation on training the police hierarchy? Where's the conversation on investing in their welfare? Where's the conversation on investing in the ammunition and the weapons that they need to engage these bandits? So if any bandit anywhere was looking at security response by the government, there's no fear at all. I don't see any reason why they would be, thinking, the government is moving in this direction. We should be afraid that this is going to come to us. Let me put a caveat on that. The bombardment in the northeast by the Nigerian defense, the Nigerian army, right, in Sambisa is acknowledged, right? But that's a microcosm of what security of lives and property means for the entire country. So we might be seeing some of the gains in terms of the bombardment in the northeast, where the Nigerian army is bombarding those spaces and those forests in Sambisa and northeast. But when you look at this entire security architecture for 200 million people, it can't just be that we're taking, these new weapons and helicopters that we have and bombarding forests and then saying, oh, we're making progress. When majority of the guys who are escaping and these terrorists, these Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists, by the way, are moving down south. And, we're just keeping our hands folded. So let me go all the way back. One, a state of emergency on insecurity in Nigeria, followed by an immediate, legislative architecture for state policing in the country, followed by increased investment in security architecture and security investment in each of the states in the country. So that all these border communities that we have, right, there is a security presence. The people who are there are well-funded. The wealth of the guys who are protecting them are well-funded. And then we can then start to talk about, what are the next steps from here.
All right, Jude, I'm sorry to cut you, but Jude, we will come back and let you finish. But right now we have to go to Benin Republic, where we have our correspondent who's going to be telling us details of what's happening.
Yes, Mazino, because tomorrow the Republic of Benin writes a new chapter. Romuald Wadagni, will be sworn in as president. The first transfer of power between two civilian presidents the country has seen in a decade. But before the ceremony, Cotonou is marking this transition in a unique way. This morning, the streets of the economic capital belong to the women. A coalition of women leaders has organized a march through the heart of Cotonou to honor outgoing President Patrice Talon for 10 years of service in the nation. Our correspondent Kathleen Dogma is on the streets of Cotonou. Kathleen, good morning. Tell us a bit more of what's going on there. Who are these women? Who are the women and what has, brought them out onto the streets of Cotonou this morning?
Good morning to you. We are out here marching with the women of the Republic of Benin in one of the most interesting events of this entire inauguration weekend. And it carries a symbolism that runs deep into the fabric of this nation. As you can see around me, there are a lot of placards here that are essentially saying thank you to President Patrice Talon for everything that he has done. And we are going to speak with one of the leaders of this. We are going to speak with the leaders of this march, and she's going to tell you in a minute what is going on. But there are hundreds of women here marching through the streets of Cotonou this morning, and this is not a single constituency that is marching. These are women from every walk of life, business leaders, academics, women of faith, traditional leaders, market women, politicians, artists, civil society figures. They are all moving together through the economic capital of Benin under one name, the Agojes. If you remember, the modern day Amazons. This march is a coalition of women leaders who brought together the National Address Circle, they call it, of women, and mobilized what has become a powerful cross-sector coalition of female voices. And the message is specific and clear. They are saying thank you. They are also saying thank you to President Patrice Talon for years of service. Thank you for showing off Benin to the world, for transforming its infrastructure, for elevating its profile on the international stage. But there is also a second thank you that these women are saying. That is one that has moved many of the women I have spoken to this morning to genuine emotion. They told us that the march also honors the First Lady, described by the organizers as the first Amazon of Benin Republic. As one organizer told me directly, she said, quote, "You have to be an Amazon to stand alongside a man like that." She was there to advise him. She was there to support him. She was his primary support. And we didn't see her, but she was by his side the whole time, unquote. These women are not simply saying farewell to their president. They are saying that the women of Benin were part of this journey, and that the women of Benin would also be part of the journey of the next president.
Kathleen, we also wanted to know the symbolism of women leading this bear well. What does it say about Patrice Talon's relationship with the women's political participation during the his decade in power?
Yeah, it is a nuanced picture, and it speaks to what the future might hold. On one hand, Talon's most visible gender legacy is the presence of Mariama Chabi Talata, who is the outgoing vice president who served under him and who now continues as vice president-elect alongside Wadagni. Her elevation to the second highest office was a landmark moment for female political representation in this country and in the broader West African context. But the structural picture remains incomplete. Women hold fewer than 1 in 10 seats in Benin Republic's National Assembly. And there is no legislated gender quota in the electoral code. Female candidacy still depends on party will rather than structural obligation. So the women marching this morning are expressing genuine gratitude, but they are also, by their very presence here and by this organization of this event, making a clear argument that women are a political force in this country, that their voices belong in the public square, and that whoever governs from tomorrow must take that seriously, not symbolically, but structurally. Historically, the Agojes of Dahomey did not ask for permission to stand in the front line, if we all remember. So today's women here are making the same point, but they are making it differently, and they are also making it quite deliberately.
Kathleen, I love what you said about the Agojes of Dahomey. But tomorrow is the actual inauguration itself. Beyond today's march, how is the country preparing? And what is the significance of what happens tomorrow for Benin and this region?
The swearing in will be held at the Congress Hall here in Cotonou, and the city is transforming by the hours. We see it. National colors are going up across the city. Security arrangements for tomorrow's inauguration are also visible. They've been made. Security forces are around, and it's extensive because dignitaries and regional heads of state are expected to arrive today and overnight, and their presence will itself be a statement about how the international community is reading this transition. But the significance of tomorrow goes beyond the ceremony. Benin arrived at this inauguration having recorded its highest presidential turnout in a decade, having completed a constitutional 2-term limit without incident, having withstood 2 coup attempts in 15 months, and having done all of this as every country on its northern border sits under military rule. So tomorrow, when Romuald Wadagni places his hand on that constitution and takes his oath of office, he does so as the elected leader of what is now one of the last functioning multi-party democracies in this party of West Africa. And that oath in this neighborhood at this moment in history carries a weight that goes far beyond Cotonou and Port Novo. And we are going to speak right now to one of the leaders to tell us exactly how she feels. Why are you here and why are you having this event?
We are here to say thank you to our president, Patrice Talon, for all things he has done for the women in Benin. We are very happy to say him. We are not going to forget about him. We love him a lot. We are very happy. All Benin women are very happy for the things he do for the women in Benin.
Thank you very much. As you have heard, these are the women, they are Gojes of Benin Republic, and they are bringing all their gratitude to President Patrice Talon ahead of the inauguration tomorrow.
Kathleen, thank you very much. You almost fit right in there. And hey, very impressive. We're going to continue coming to you for more updates throughout the entire day. Thank you very much, Kathleen. For now, however, we're going to return to our conversation as we were having with Jude and also Israel Ifirubo on the Oyo kidnapping and the outrage and questions after this abductions. Jude, sorry to have kept you waiting. We had to take that real quick so we don't miss that much. But Jude, let's ask one final question, and if you can keep it summary, if you do not mind. How do you think what kind of check do you think can be put in place when it comes to the movement of these criminals through the forests, which themselves ought to be ought to have some sort of what do you call it, governance over them. There's the forest guards, there's the Amotekun. What mechanism do you think can be put in place that local authorities will be able to handle?
Thank you very much again. And I'm sorry to say, except you put out a robust state policing and community policing infrastructure across the country, this is not going to stop. It's going to be painful. This is something that we should have done, 3 years back, 10 years back. But we keep pushing the needle forward. We keep pushing the agenda forward and saying, we can't do state police because governors will use it against opposition and a lot of all these different excuses. The cost of that weak infrastructure that now needs to get, on board right now is what we're seeing. Beheaded teachers, kidnapped children, kidnapped families. So if there's anything that we need to do now, like if there's anything I expect to see now, is the president aligning with his National Assembly and saying, when are we having, I want a legislative, position and, progress on state policing in Nigeria in 2 weeks. That we then start saying, okay, where are the pockets of Kwara State, where are the forests, for example? This Kwara State, Oyo State, this is where we want to start from, putting all our energies when we roll out this state policing infrastructure. Because again, like we've already established here, there are other forests, right? I hope it doesn't happen, but if this is not put in place, don't be shocked. Let's not be shocked that in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month down the line, we're talking about another kidnapping incident that is basically tangential to another forest in Nigeria.
Okay.
So again, in summary, a state and community policing infrastructure that already integrates Amotekun, local vigilantes, funded properly. And of course, you can then layer technology on that. Okay. But there's no layering of technology in terms of intelligence or drones or surveillance when there are no boots on the ground in the communities that really need this thing. Otherwise, it's just going to be reactive.
All right, then, Jude.
That's our position at the 5-Star Movement and what I really do hope to see going forward.
Thank you very much, Jude. Boots on the ground. That's grand. I'm going to ask Israel his final question, and I fear that this question should have been asked from before because, Israel, you actually talked about the Oba telling that we could see the children being, chauffeured off. It seems to me that there was some sort of correspondence at the time between them, that's the local leaders, and the abductors. And I'm wondering whether there was any warning, any early warning signs from before then for the community. Was there any?
No, I don't think there was any, because one of the elders I spoke to in the community did say that they haven't seen anything like this before in there. And for them to have seen them being chauffeured, into the forest, it just tells you just how powerless these communities are. So there was no correspondence whatsoever between them. But of course, I mean, when you see a man with super firepower, AK-47 rifles,
what can you do?
What can you do? And they shoot us periodically. One of the ladies told me, the woman in the community told me that she heard gunshot more than 100 times. So when you see, it was like a war zone. So you basically cannot even engage them. You cannot say any word to them. You can only watch from afar helplessly and just see what exactly is going on. But a deeper concern is the fact that the 3 schools that were attacked are now closed.
Oh, there were 3 different schools?
Yeah, 3 different schools in close proximity. Oh, actually they attacked simultaneously.
At the same time?
At the same time. So it tells you that even the military...
They were coordinated? They had strategy?
They are always coordinated.
Is totally... You're exhausted at this point.
They are always coordinated. So do not think that these people, these criminals in the forest do not know what they're doing. They have high intelligence as well. They know when to strike and what to strike. And that's what saddens everyone. And that's why the villages and the communities there, they feel powerless and weak when these things happen. So there are 3 schools right there. Those 3 schools right now, when we got there, they were not closed. They were closed. Okay. So the students are no longer in school, which is now going to affect
their education.
So we've seen this number of out-of-school children grow across the country.
Yeah.
And sadly, it is continuing. due to this rising cases of insecurity, not just in Kwara State, not just in Oyo State, not just in Owerri local government area, but across the nation.
And it's coming down south.
Yeah.
It's really sad. I was having a conversation with one of my Nigerian mothers here, and she said she's at that age where she can stay in Nigeria. But the reality is, even if you as an individual love Nigeria, if you have the capacity and the means to send your children out, you're going to do that. Because to a certain degree, whether you are thinking about boarding school, whether you're just thinking about daily commute of going to school, you don't necessarily have that guarantee and assurance that says, my child is going to come back home alive. I put them in boarding school, they're going to break into the boarding schools and abduct the children. Now, the proof of a working country, Mazino, is that you have the right to security.
Yeah.
It's your right
Yes.
as a citizen of the country. And you are stripped of that right, and the government can't give you that right back. So in as much as everybody tends to say that, oh, this regime is better than it's not. You have deprived Nigerian citizens the right to security. Are we... my tongue.
I see your
one of the mothers said to me that my child, that Friday morning, only had pap.
Oh, dear. Now you're breaking my heart.
That the child was asking for eba that morning, but what she had was cold. And she said, you know what, just take this pap. By the time you get back from school, I will make hot eba for you. And then you can have a fuller meal. The child is in the forest right now.
I think we have to end the conversation here. It's getting very, very emotional. Not to say that they are not, it's not relevant. It's not still topical. But let me say thank you to Jude, who we've kept on for so long. Jude, thank you very much for hanging with us up until now for this conversation. We appreciate your input. And thank you for your great reporting. And we hope that you'd continue to bring us more updates on the situation there. And thank Kathleen as well for bringing us the incidents happening inside of Benin Republic as we look forward to the transition tomorrow, where we'll also continue bringing more updates. Do stay with us. We're ending this segment emotionally, but we will be back with more conversation. You're welcome back. We're still talking here on Breakfast Extra, but this time we're bringing it back home here in Lagos. Lagos, city that moves on time, schools run, deliveries, office resumptions, emergency response. And at the center of much of that movement is the Eko Bridge. Now, with plans for maintenance and possible closure under review, many residents are asking the same question. Can Lagos fix critical infrastructure without pushing commuters deeper into hardships? Authorities say the repairs are necessary for safety and long-term stability, but transport operators, business owners, and residents fear the ripple effect on traffic, on productivity, and daily survival. Once again, our correspondent Israel Iferobo, who we seem to be overworking, visited key points around the bridge corridor, spoke with commuters and also officials, and examined what this maintenance plan could mean for a city already under pressure. And here's his report. We'll bring you that package after, but let's just come right into the conversation. Inam, do you want to start this conversation?
Israel, from your findings on the ground, how prepared do residents appear for a possible closure of traffic diversion at the Eko Bridge?
Okay, first things first. I thought we were going to go on a very long break.
No, I know the previous conversation was very emotional, so it's still heavy over us.
Yeah.
So permit the very,
Yeah. So the update on the bridge right now, I'll come to a question. The update on the bridge right now is that the planned closure, which was going to be a temporary closure, has been suspended by the federal government. So this is the...
Did they say why?
No, they didn't say why. So, and this is not the first time they are not telling us a why, to why they're not doing what they've said that they will do. So 2 weeks ago was the first time this bridge was meant to be closed. And then it was moved to last week, Monday. And then the same thing happened again. We were on the ground and we saw it. But one thing is certain. The Eko Bridge, one of the busiest bridges connecting the island and the mainland here in Lagos State, has some sort of structural defect. One of the legs of the bridge, there are about 8 of them. So one of the legs, holding the bridge together is indeed faulty. So it has affected the structural integrity of the bridge. So there are engineers already working there to see how they can manage the load on the bridge. So that has already been ongoing for over 2 weeks now. I don't know, the visuals that we saw on the screen just now, those are the men that you set up on top of the bridge, but actually they are under the bridge as well. Divers had to go in there as well. from the Federal Ministry of Works. They've been working on this for some time now. So what happened was they were contemplating, should we go ahead and do a temporal shutdown of the bridge? Can we also get a drone shot of the bridge as well?
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
let's get a drone shot so we can so they can see it as well. So yes, so they've been working on that for some time now. The engineers from the Federal Ministry of Works, the divers as well, they've been underneath the bridge, checking to see what defects and how what solutions they can put in place to ensure that the structural integrity of the bridge is not compromised even further than what it is right now. So what you see right now, so the legs of the bridge, they call them the pie caps, and then they need to fix one of them, which is defect, which is suffering a defect, and then the expansion joints on top of the bridge as well. They also need to work on them. So these are the concerns that they have.
We have to go now, but you can't leave without telling us when they have planned this. Have they put a date now?
So there is no date.
No date yet.
There's no date for this, but I'm quite sure that it will be pretty soon.
And did they tell for how long it will be closed for?
Well, before now, what we heard was that it was going to be closed for about 6 months.
6 months.
Yes. And to answer Inam's question, Lagosians were actually ready for that closure. They already said, you know what, I will plan I'll adjust my travel time, how I'm going to be moving. But then again, that is not the only way to get into the mainland or the island. And that's why we have 3 major bridges, the Kata Bridge, Eko Bridge, and the Third Mainland Bridge.
Don't try Kata Bridge,
that's a nightmare. There are lots of ways to just move across. But then again, the shutdown of the bridge that they said they will do wasn't going to be a total shutdown. It was going to be just the outbound section of the Eko Bridge, so it doesn't affect the work that is ongoing underneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Israel, thank you very much. You spent almost an hour here with us having that conversation from Oyo and into this one about the Lagos Bridge. Yeah. And we'll continue to follow you as you follow the issues. And let's give Inam a break because she needs it. I think I do as well.
Yeah.
We'll be right back, to stay tuned. This is still Breakfast Extra. Welcome again. Now, let's talk the APC primaries. The All Progressives Congress is conducting the presidential primaries election today, Saturday, May 23rd, 2026, across Nigeria. Adopting a direct primary system, the ruling party has empowered all registered members to cast their votes simultaneously across the nation's 8,809 wards. As the exercise gets underway, News Central Television is tracking developments nationwide to ensure comprehensive coverage. Our correspondent, Austin Azu, is already on ground in Ika South, local government area, Delta State, to monitor proceedings and provide live updates on the voting process in the South-South region. Austin, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Without further ado, do tell us what the situation is there in Delta State.
Okay, good morning, Zino. Currently, we are at Ward 5 at in the South local government area of Delta State. You can see the ambience already. The place is getting filled up with party faithful of APC members who are coming to participate in the ongoing presidential APC primaries across the state and beyond the state. However, this particular ward you are seeing here comprises of 17 polling units. And of course, they have held all the primaries elections for the APC from the beginning of the exercise. To participate in this presidential APC primaries. And of course, we gathered so far that before now, the atmosphere of this exercise was quite peaceful. The previous exercise they had was quite peaceful. And of course, the presence of security personnel and of course, INEC officials and some other persons actually converged here to monitor the exercise.
During the course of the day, we will be following the stories and, dial back with Austin Azu, probably during this, if not then on the news. Let's go on a quick break now, but when we return, we get back to the stories for today. Do you stay with us? You're welcome back. Now, obstetric fistula remains one of the most painful and overlooked childbirth injuries affecting women across parts of Africa and Asia, often caused by prolonged obstructed labor without timely medical intervention. The condition leaves many women battling inconsistent infections and social isolation for years. In Nigeria, where maternal health care access remains uneven, especially in rural communities, the issue speaks directly to larger concerns about safe motherhood, poverty, healthcare funding as well, and of course, beyond education. Now, beyond the physical damage, many women living with fistula face rejection, stigma, and silence in communities where reproductive health conversations are still difficult to have openly.
And at its core, this conversation about dignity, about access, about the value placed in women's health. Joining us now is Dr. Temitope Adekanye to help us better understand the realities behind the conditions and what can be done to end it. Dr. Adekanye, do people call you Kanye?
Some do.
Some do, don't they? You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Obstetrics fistula. It's not something that's commonly understood by most people. So if you'd first of all give us an idea how to ordinarily understand what it means.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So just imagine you have two pipes beside each other, right? And there seems to be a connection between the two.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we are talking about vagina, the urethral orifice, which is where urine passes through, and then the anus behind. In this case, there are 3 pipes. So for every woman. So the anus is where feces will pass through, she eats, body digests, waste passes through the anus. Then the vagina, that is where sexual intercourse happens. And then you have the urethral orifice where urine passes. Now imagine a woman falls in labor and for some reason the baby's head could not pass through as it should. What do you now have? Those pipes, because of their proximity, the wall between them starts eroding, starts going off. And somehow, most cases, a woman can be in labor 2-3 days. That's obstructed labor and not deliver. So, of course, over time, wear and tear. Maybe she successfully delivers eventually, and then sometime later, you now find out that there is a hole, a gap between the two. So that means that for urine to pass through its own route, the urethral orifice, it will bypass, go into the vagina. It can happen the other way too, where for feces to pass through the anus, it will bypass, go into the vagina. So in a nutshell, that's what we mean by fistula. Is there any connection between 2 pipes in close proximity?
All right. Inam, you have to help me here. This is a bit too traumatic for me to
I
understand.
was actually doing a bit of research because I do have an aunt who has been dealing. She actually opened up an NGO for fistula in Congo because of how prevalent it was in Congo as well. But I want to ask you, Doctor, for viewers hearing about the obstetric fistula for the first time, what's the difference between a fistula alone and the obstetric fistula?
Yeah, well, fistulas on its own can happen anywhere in the body. Once you have 2 areas in close proximity, that can be an erosion of the wall. You can have fistula. You can have a fistula between the nose and the mouth.
Okay.
You understand? Because they are in close proximity. But what we mean by obstetric fistula, the word obstetric means pregnancy. Meaning that the cause is the pregnancy.
All right. And then when we look at the conditions, what does this condition, why actually does this condition remain so common in parts of Nigeria, not even Nigeria, actually in Africa, despite advances in maternal health care?
And when you say advances, those advances don't reach everywhere. That's the truth. Maybe urban areas might have the benefit of having specialists or at least a medical officer that has an idea what to do. When you go to the rural areas, it's a completely different story. They don't have medical officers, they don't have specialists, you don't even have people that are trained to identify it. Don't get me wrong, it can happen to anyone. But where the issue is intervention, quick intervention. Making up your mind, oh, this baby is not going to pass through this vagina, let's find another route. So really, that is really what makes it bad. And one of the things we can do is to prevent. Because as they say, prevention is always better than cure. Prevent it from happening in the first place.
How do you prevent it? What do you do?
Very good question.
Now, that is really what is sad. It's actually easy. The first thing you want to do is education. You need to educate people as to what it is. The reason why you find it in some parts of Nigeria is because the women that are coming in labor there are much younger. When I'm talking about 15-year-olds.
Age is a factor.
Age can be a factor. But if you have a 15-year-old girl that is well knowledgeable about what could cause it, what it could be, then That is a start.
Wait, before you answer this very question, let's go back again. What exactly could cause the erosion of these orifices in the body?
Yeah, in this obstetric fistula,
yeah,
is labor that is prolonged.
Prolonged labor.
Now,
it's not hygiene, not
necessarily hygiene.
Labor.
Look at it this way. You have a typical example. 15-year-old girl got pregnant, is in labor, about to deliver. Baby is too big to pass through. So now you have the egg stuck in the vagina. Of course, eventually, over time, it will erode into both sides, anteriorly to the urethra, posteriorly to the anus. So what causes it is basically the fact that the head is just there. I had one recently like that. Very small, not a big person per se. And the baby she was carrying was over 5 kg. An average baby should weigh less than 4 kg. And this woman was in labor for 3 days.
Oh dear, wow.
So let me just interject there very quickly. It's a very, before we look at the age thing, ideally a gynecologist or whoever it is, that is the doctor on call, when in South Africa we call them, the monthly checkups that you do before you give birth, which is how you're able to tell the weight. Antenatal. Antenatal, right?
Yes, antenatal.
You go for these monthly, which is why you're able to kind of
identify
the weight of the child. If by the time I'm going into labor, before myself going into labor, you would know that the child is heavy, why would a doctor wait that long? Or even try to attempt to have a person push out a baby that big?
Maybe lack of a doctor?
Yeah, that is one thing. Another thing is that guessing the weight of a baby is not an exact science.
Yeah, but why are we guessing?
No, I'm not saying, I wouldn't say guess per se. Getting to know, have an idea what the weight of that baby is not an exact science.
Oh, in itself,
it
is not oh, okay.
It's not exact. For example, you can say, there are factors we know. There are some women that generally you expect the baby to be big. A diabetic patient, for example, I'm expecting the baby to be big. Then I look at the stature, look at the weight. There are some we make up our mind from the word go, she can't deliver. But then, even a scan cannot be 100% accurate in having an idea what the weight is. What we say in our line of work is that what we call pelvimetry, that's to measure whether a baby can pass through.
Yes.
The best pelvimeter is labor. You understand me? The danger here...
Like getting to the bridge before crossing it.
Yeah, the danger here is that the patient now comes in labor and she's not properly monitored. You understand me? The trick is monitoring. And that's another way to prevent proper monitoring in labor.
So on the side of the patient now, not a patient at this point, but the pregnant woman, what factors should they look out for? What indicators should they look out for that could be of concern when labor comes?
Yeah, as I said, some women are already prone to it, diabetic patients.
Okay.
A couple of, yeah, they are prone to having a big baby.
Okay, so I think what he was saying was with regards to the fistula.
He is on track because, yeah, if you're diabetic, you should already know.
No.
So what else can I look out for that I might have
from the prevention standpoint?
Yeah, from the prevention standpoint.
Yeah. Then another thing to look at is 3 things you need for labor to work out. The passenger, the power, and the passage. The passenger is the baby. In this case, we are talking diabetic that could have a big baby. Passenger is too big, will not pass through. Passage need to be too small. Some women already have some form of bony deformation.
Okay.
You already know. Then the power. Sometimes the labor itself may not really work as it should. You understand? So those are 3 things you need. In case of obstructed labor, that could cause obstetric fistula. Your major problem is the passenger and the passage. Is the passage big enough for the passenger? You understand me? Is the passenger a small passenger or not? And then sometimes, it does happen a lot in younger women because of the fact that the passage itself is not well developed to accommodate that.
Does the risk get smaller with the frequency of childbirth? If I had a child before, am I less at risk?
You're actually more at risk.
Oh, wow.
You know, the example I gave the other time is such a sad case because this woman, this was her 3rd pregnancy. The first one apparently was a big baby, over 4 kg. Second one, same thing. Apparently, between the second and this current pregnancy, she has had a rectovaginal fistula, meaning there was feces coming through the vagina. And somehow she got pregnant again with that.
She didn't know about this?
Or education, lack of proper obstetric care, you know. So a lot of them go to traditional birth attendants, majorly because of cost. What was sad about her was that this time around, the baby was even much bigger than the previous ones, and she nearly lost her life.
Oh, wow.
So the thing about it is highly preventable. That's just what is pathetic. Highly preventable. You can guess ahead, or you can predict ahead the kind of patient that could have it. You understand me? And then the question you were asking about, why can't we be able to decide beforehand? WHO will tell you, best way for a baby to be delivered is vaginally. Yeah, CS is fantastic. It's faster. It solves the problem of having an issue there, but it has its own risk. The moment you cut into someone, there's always risk of infection and whatnot. So we always offer every patient, as long as there are no clear risk factors, we offer you vaginal delivery. And as I said, it's always the best perimeter, the best measurement that can a baby pass through. Along the line, if you are properly monitoring, you check, it's looking like he's stuck. At that point, you go and deliver, fistula will not happen. Are you with me? So it's quite a preventable condition.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's preventable, but clearly we're not preventing it. And I think this is why we're having many of these issues. But I think the question that I did have for you is, you made a comment about how a child at the age of 15 may not have clear passage. It's interesting that you would say that, because sometimes it's debatable that the older that you get, the harder it is for you to have clear passage. So can you just debunk some of those things for us?
It's a concept of certain age groups. Now, once the woman is lesser than 20, we call it a teenage pregnancy.
Right.
In itself, she's still developing. The best time is always early 20s. And then there's the other extreme. It's not like, as you get older, it gets worse. The other extreme is also there. Women older than 35. That one too has its own issues. But most of those issues are chronic issues. Talking maybe hypertension, diabetes. Those are chronic conditions that come with that age. So the sweet spot is 20 to just about 34 years of age. You understand me? So for anything less than 20, it could come. Don't get me wrong. There are 15-year-olds that come, have a vaginal delivery safely with no problems. You understand me? But the risk is higher with them because of the way the passage would be. Passage may not be well aligned to what is coming.
So let's now, after prevention might have failed, what happens? I'm assuming that there is the option of, you said the word right now, CS, cesarean section.
Okay.
What other methods could help, well, not at this point prevent, but what other methods could be employed when we have these problems?
Okay, let me break it down. Prevention is in three ways. There's the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. When we say primary, that's you even prevent the patient from even getting pregnant when you know that she's at risk. And that is where education of the girl child, awareness programs, that can help. Then the secondary prevention is that she is pregnant and you're already anticipating what you can anticipate, what you can get at delivery. So you can bypass that by going for an elective cesarean section. That's a form of secondary prevention. Now there is also the option of tertiary prevention, where the damage has happened. She has already come, there was obstructed labor, and you already anticipate that this woman could develop a fistula. You can put a catheter into the bladder, let it stay there for 2 weeks, and fantastic outcomes. The bladder is a very forgiving organ, as we say. You put a catheter there, you already know, this woman had obstructed labor, she came to you, maybe after 3 days of labor, you already know that at some point she's going to develop a fistula. You can go for a tertiary prevention. Put a urethral catheter, most likely you will end up doing an emergency CS. Put a urethral catheter, leave it in place. 2 weeks. If you remove it after that, our chances of having that is low.
But even after childbirth, and I'm talking about the erosion of these tissues now, do they heal on their own or do they require an operation or surgery?
Good. Now that is the end point of the tertiary prevention.
Okay.
where there are treatments available. One of the things about obstetric fistula is that it can be difficult to resolve, even at surgery. And what causes that is that there are some fistulas that are clean. You know, 2 different pipes. It's a small, straightforward cut. You know, in 2-3 months, you can easily repair that and not worry. In obstetric fistula, problem is that that head was there for so long that the way the fistula was formed was like it caused a mass damage around. So those areas that are damaged, you need to give them time to heal. Sometimes you wait almost a year for it to properly heal. And then you now assess and go in and repair layer by layer. The specialists that do that are not that common.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and there are fistula centers in Nigeria. I know they have one in the north, another one in the east. They do fantastic job and get fantastic.
Let's hope the EFCC doesn't go and arrest them again, like last week, remember?
I see what you did.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm satisfied with the questions of my curiosity. Do you have any more? Did you like that?
No,
Oh yeah, there is one thing. Government intervention. What does the government need to do? You talked about education, the lack of. You talked about the lack of doctors. How do you think the government can come in with a policy or arrangement, whatever it is?
Yeah, the government can come in into all the different layers of prevention. The awareness programs, I think we need to sing it more. It needs to be a jingle up and down. Everybody should hear that this is a preventable condition. There are so many preventable conditions in obstetrics and gynecology. This is preventable. And the more you educate people, the more they are aware as to what is needed to prevent it. Government can come in there. Another way the government can come in is that I can count the number of specialists that keep leaving this country.
Yeah.
They keep leaving. And when I say specialists, these are people that are completely trained, that can handle these conditions, but they are leaving. You know, because remunerations are not good enough. You understand? And if we really do our program well, if we really plan our country well, these are people that can go into all those rural areas we talked about initially, that rural areas where you don't have specialists there, you don't have people that can handle these conditions there. If you pay them well enough, I can assure you people will go. So that's another way of government intervention. A third way is that I think they should work more on funding hospitals. You understand me? Training people that are willing to go and learn how to do these procedures. So that's another way they can come in. So it's a multi-pronged way they can come in, and if they are really ready.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much. I must say that this was a class on its own. I've learned so much about the human anatomy, especially the female human anatomy. And you've explained it in such graphic and understandable ways that I think I'm more related to the subject now. And I hope that somehow the government does indeed take note and bring more awareness to this issue here in Nigeria. Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to break and we'll bring you the primaries or instances from the primaries from Rivers State up for our next conversation inside of Breakfast Xtra. Stay with us.
You're welcome back, and let's go into politics, where political developments in Rivers State continue to attract national attention as shifting alliances and internal party tensions reshape conversations ahead of the future elections. Reports of withdrawals and strategic exits from governorship primary races have once again highlighted the fragile balance of loyalty, influence, and political survival within the state. Rivers politics has long held national significance due to the state's economic importance and its influence within the broader Niger Delta power structure. What happens there rarely stays there, and for many observers, the current situation raises deeper questions about party cohesion, political negotiation, and the future direction of opposition politics in the state.
Yes, indeed. Now, to help us unpack the implications of these developments, we are joined by, well, this morning, Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Wisdom Chap, thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule, because we do know that you were out already for the primaries, but you still chose to join us here. Thank you very much. Chap, let's already get started. From an analytical standpoint, who appears to be gaining the most strategic advantage from the current situation? Let's note that this story goes way back. We gave Fubara a realignment into other parties, and now a withdrawal from the primaries and saying in the name of peace. First of all, what's going on? and who's at advantage?
Good morning, Mazino. I don't think this conversation will be about who is getting advantage. The state has been in an unfortunate political situation for the last 3 years, one that some of us think that could have been avoided, but unfortunately we spent the last 3 years on this crisis. So at this point, I think Rivers people are taking back the state, are taking part in the political situation in the state. And of course, as we go into 2027, we are going as a united front. We are going as one people to correct some of the issues that we saw that led us to the crisis in the first place. Executive and legislative need to work together. And that's why we have a democracy. And we need to come to either we are solving our issues politically, or of course we understand how to work together for the greater good of the people. So what is happening in Rivers State now, from the point where we see it now, is we are now correcting some of the mistakes that led us to the crisis 3 years ago. If a governor would not keep to his promise, would not keep to his agreement to his political party, and that leads the entire state into a crisis, which could have been avoided, we're ensuring that as we go to 2027, that will not be the case any longer.
Now, Chap, do these developments, the ones that you've just mentioned, do they strengthen or do they weaken public confidence in the democratic process?
Of course, for the ordinary Rivers people, it's indeed an unfortunate situation, because throughout these 3 years, governance may have seen some setback because the governor, who is the head of executive, who should focus on governance, has been busy playing politics for the last 3 years and participating in the crisis that he could have avoided in the very beginning. So, of course, the trust from the other Rivers people is what we'll try to build back as we go into 2027. And we also hope that now that the governor has, in his word, willingly withdrawn from the race to focus on governance, he has the next 12 months before May 29, 2027, to indeed write his name in gold for Rivers people by focusing strictly on governance.
Chap, very sensitive question here. I hear you keep talking about trust. I hear you keep talking about betrayal. I hear you keep talking about the fact that the person that the people had put their trust or votes in is here or neither there. So I'm wondering exactly what the stance, from your analysis, what the stance of the Rivers State people is. Let's talk about influence now. Let's also have the presidency influence in here. Let's talk about Wike's influence, Tony Eko's withdrawal, Fubara's withdrawal. What options do the Rivers State people have at this point?
First of all, we are very grateful to Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who intervened at least more than 4 times in the crisis in Rivers State to provide leadership and avoid the state from, falling into deeper issues or security crisis in itself. The president did his very best, and we are grateful to him. I think as we go into the 2027 election, what we are seeing now is Rivers people are queuing behind a candidate that we see that can unify us and, of course, provide the needed governance that we have lacked. I like to say that I wasn't surprised by the withdrawal of Governor Fubara in the primaries. I think he may have listened to last-minute wise counsel to say, look, you know what? It will not be wise that you go into these primaries, as you may be going to a primaries that you may never be able to succeed. One that was very surprising for me was Tony Eko. I thought he hoped to fight to finish. But I think his withdrawal in itself signaled even a strengthened political bond for the APC in Rivers State, because we know how critical he has been about his interest and ambition to be governor of Rivers State. So I think his withdrawal is one that indeed is welcomed. And we also saw him during the governorship primaries go down to his local government, join fellow party members to be part of the primaries, even though he had withdrawn. That shows comradeship, and unity for the party itself. So I think I can now confidently call Mr. Toye Cole a politician, finally, because he has been able to unify himself for the greater good of the party. So that's a welcome one. As we go into 2027, under the APC, we are standing behind Okechinda, who will now lead us into a more unified political season, and as we go into the election, because there's a lot that needs to be restored in governance in Rivers State. There's a lot of policies and a lot of governance and that's suffered setback indeed in the last 3 years. One of it, for example, is decentralizing the Nigerian Electricity Acts and creating a market for the state to solve energy and power issues in the state. We have seen that has not even gained enough progress because of some of these issues, even though the Assembly has been able to work on a draft of that law, but all the issues have not led that to proceed. And other laws that the governor has not even assent to because it does not align with the matters that made with the Assembly. All these things. So a lot of things have indeed gone wrong that we can set together for a greater good of the state. So we see progress gradually.
Chap, I hear what you're saying about the people unifying under Okechinda and all. I met Toye Cole once, I think. We interviewed him about his book. He was a very interesting person. So you say it shocked you, his withdrawal, but I wasn't as shocked as you were because, and I made a couple of notes here as you were talking. What I see, or what I could see was something that seemed internally pre-arranged, agreements that were met. And I'm wondering what room this gives for democracy or option for the people who are voting. Doesn't that concern you?
Mazino, politics is a game of interest, and interests were aligned for the greater good of the people. I can't say for sure if there were any agreements Mr. Toye Cole may have entered because I wasn't there. I don't know. But I will tell you that maybe his realignment he has seen that is for the greater good of the people. Different states come together to align interests to pick a consensus candidate. Ogun did it, Lagos did it. It is because, when we are divided, we achieve nothing. So as a party, if we are going to be divided amongst ourselves, then we are not even going to be strengthened enough to face an opposition if we need to. So that's why the consensus, comes in Ogun. For example, all the heavyweights in Ogun State came together and said, you know what, let us present Adeola Yayi as a governorship consensus candidate for the party. Lagos did the same with Obafemi Hamzat. It is not new in politics to do so. What I can tell you is whether there was any agreement that led to that behind the scenes. I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know. But however, we looking from the outside, what we see is that interests are aligning for the greater good and the progress and development of Rivers State. If we believe that Okechinda will lead us into what we see as a progressive, Rivers State, then everybody queue behind him. Just like today, we're all heading out for the primaries to affirm our support for our consensus presidential candidate, which is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And because we want to see continuity in some of the efforts he has put in the last couple of years to see it sustained over a period of time. This is the way I believe that we can make governance work for us as a people and not dividing ourselves. Because if we divide ourselves, then we face the opposition as a divided house. Just like the opposition now is divided against themselves. So we don't know how they are going to succeed at the end of the day. But I think is the best approach. And it takes leadership to arrive at this point. The only person in this mix that we know that had no leverage in itself and had no choice but to withdraw was Governor Fubara, which we are not surprised. And we hope that lessons have been learned. And the next 1 year, he will commit to governance and give the people the best of his best in his last shot at his tenure.
I'll take you up on that conversation about division from the opposition because we seem to be seeing some Sims coming apart inside of the APC at the moment. But I'll let Inam ask a question because she has one.
Chap, when we look at the mobilization, how would you in turn say that you guys are doing at a grassroots level, especially ahead of the future elections in Rivers State?
I think what has shown us is this direct primaries has gotten the people fully involved. And unlike what we used to have before, where we elect 3-4 persons to travel to the state capital or travel to Abuja, called delegates, to go and probably sometimes they even take money and vote whatever they like and come back. This time around, we can see that in many states, what is playing out is the direct primaries is showing the strength and popularity of candidates. These same people are Nigerians who participate in the main election. So you can see that direct primaries is strengthening our political system at the grassroots. If you are not popular, if you stand on that line on the day of the primaries and nobody stands behind you, then you know that you are really unpopular, because how much, you can't bribe everybody. How much do you have to bribe 80,000 party members in your ward to vote for you? It's impossible. If they don't believe in your vision, they don't believe in your mission or your goals or your plans for them as a people, nobody will stand behind you. And when you stand on that line on the day of primaries for direct primaries, you either get 14 votes or you get 2 votes, or so it is clear. And who the people stand with, you can see it.
It's a very interesting instance there that we're studying inside of Rivers State, especially as they move to primaries here today. I really wanted to take him up on something that I thought was very relevant, and that's regarding Tonya Cole's consensus to actually step aside for the primaries as against what it seems like when it comes to Fubaras, because I don't know, if you really follow the story, and I said this from this morning when I was talking about the Lagos State instance, when people say they're withdrawing or stepping aside, it's actually because there are things that have been prearranged from internally, and you don't really get a say as you and I. And it has its influence on democracy. In the case of Fubara, it seemed out of exhaustion.
And it's okay to be exhausted. Because
that was what I wanted to really ask Chap. So if we have Chap back, and I'm hoping that he can hear us banter about this right now, didn't it seem more like it was a case of exhaustion? Do we have Chap back?
No, not yet.
No, we don't have Chap back. Well, if we do have him back, that's the question that I really like to have him answer. We're still talking about the primaries inside of Rivers State and the instances that we had. Chap, I hear you're back, Chap. While you were off, we actually started talking about another related instance here. Tonya Cole, you say, might have actually restricted himself based on consensus inside of the party. You say he came to senses. But the Fubara withdrawal, the Fubara restriction here seemed to be out of exhaustion. Of course, you talked about the fact that this has been going on for 3 years. Doesn't it seem so that, oh, you know what, let's just let this. There was also the rumor about him picking up an NDC form from earlier in the week, which he debunked. But from every story, from every rumor, you should expect that there is an iota of concern that it brings, especially where the electorate are left to guess what's happening on their own, where there are no public announcements or statements put out there. About the issue of exhaustion on Fubara's side now, what do you think? Is there credit there?
I don't think, truthfully, knowing the issues in Rivers State, I don't think it's a matter of exhaustion. Because, at some point, we know the president of the Senate had asked in an event that what is the struggle all about at the end of the day. So I think it's from his standpoint to see that he had become unpopular, and there was no way he was going to be successful in that primaries in a party where...
In a system like Nigeria's, there's no way you can be successful if the structure says you won't be successful. So that in itself is exhaustion, if you get what I mean. I can't fight against the system as an individual, is what I mean.
Because you lost the trust of this structure that brought you into office in the first place.
Did he lose the trust of the people, however? Because they seemed very well behind him.
Yep.
Mazino, let me be honest with you. A lot of the time, it's either the governor is lying to his followers, or the followers are lying to him. Because when it mattered the most, how many of these followers stood with him when it mattered the most? It's because they knew that the truth was not what he was saying to them. when it mattered the most, how many of his followers did he carry along to actually go and be honest with them and tell them the actual truth? You go to Abuja, you enter into an agreement, you come back and you don't tell your followers the facts of the matter. So how would they trust you at the end of the day? Thousands of followers who claim to have followed you, you threw under the bus. So how would you have won the primaries if you had gone into that election? So for Fubara's case, I think it was last-minute advice to tell him that, look, if you go into this, Mr. Governor, you may not be able to come as successful, as the odds are just clearly against you at the end of the day. And all of that was put into consideration, I assume, before he come to the conclusion that he was going to withdraw from the race. However, some of us were hoping that he went into the race so that we can put to an end that issue of whether he could have won or not. So I feel like that I just put an end to that whole issue. But at the end of the day, for the sake of peace and for the sake of consensus and progress of the party and the people, he chose to withdraw. We accept his withdrawal and we wish him all the best.
All right, Chap, thank you so much for your insights down there in Riverside. I was telling Mazino that we call people like you happy chappies. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, away from that, political tensions are escalating in Senegal after President Bassirou Doumbouya Faye reportedly dismissed Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and dissolved the government in a dramatic late-night decision announced on a state television. This comes after months of reported disagreements between the two political allies who rose to power together following the 2024 elections. The development is already raising concerns across West Africa about political stability in one of the region's key democracies.
Sonko, widely seen as a powerful political force with strong youth support, had reportedly clashed with President Faye over key policy decisions, including economic reform and debt negotiations, as Senegal battles financial pressures. But now, this is all we can bring to you. But more updates, analysis, and also the implications of this political shakeup will be discussed in depth on Breakfast Xtra tomorrow morning, so make sure you join us then as we sink our teeth into it. We're going to take a short break now. We've got more conversation coming your way. Here, I think we're down to almost just over an hour, and we'll be back.
And in our Focus Africa story today, concerns are growing across parts of Central Africa following reports that the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo may be extending beyond previous affected areas. Health authorities are monitoring rising fatalities and renewed fears over cross-border transmission and containment efforts continue. Now, Ebola remains one of the world's deadliest viral diseases, not only because of its fatality rate, but because outbreaks often expose weaknesses in healthcare systems, emergency response coordination, and public trust. Now, for African countries with active regional movements and trade connections, the concern is never isolated to one nation alone.
So as governments and health agencies work to contain the spread, questions are growing around preparedness, public awareness, and regional cooperation. So joining us this morning is Amy Zomveni to help understand the realities on the ground and the wider implications of the outbreak. He joins us with audio only, and he is the editor-in-chief, Kinshasa Times. Amy, thank you very much for joining us. We hope that this holds out. We've got so many questions regarding this latest confirmed situation. Now, regarding the spread and the fatality figures, how big of an issue is it?
Thank you very much for having me on the program. It started a couple of weeks ago, more specifically on the 14th of May in a city called Bunia, and then started in the eastern parts of the DRC. At the border with Uganda, and then spread a bit further to the north in Goma. And as I speak, Uganda and Rwanda have shut their borders. Now, in terms of case fatality rate, there are 6 confirmed deaths, i.e. deaths related to Ebola directly, and there's also 161 suspected deaths. And in terms of contacts, we're talking 1,261 that are said to have been come into contact with the disease. So this is a very concerning situation. And what gets even more concerning is the fact that it is a new strain that has only happened in the past 2 times. This is the third time that the outbreak with that specific strain is happening, and therefore no medication for that strain is available, hence the risk for it to spread without any appropriate countermeasures.
Now, let's look at the concerns. How concerned are health officials about the possibility of transmission beyond the DRC? And in fact, what are they doing to kind of curb this transmission?
It is no longer a possibility because one case was already crossed into Uganda before Uganda shut the border. So now Uganda is potentially also actually to concern. And the DRC medical authorities and the WHO and other financial and technical partners have deployed medical countermeasures to the affected areas, including PPEs and other preventive countermeasures. But you should also bear in mind that this is happening in a place where a conflict is unfolding. There's a rebellion unfolding there. So you have a conflict between health concerns and security concerns.
Okay, so we're going to keep this short because we're worried about the audio, but I won't let you go without asking how communities are responding within the DRC and also with the countries that are proximate to where this exposure might get to them. We have word from the WHO regarding the spread and what countries must do, but on ground, what does it look like?
What looks like is that treatment centers have been opened in the affected areas, and as long as you get to the treatment center early enough, the disease can be contained. But when you get to the wet stage, when you are already bleeding, then that becomes unfortunate, because then the only option remaining is unfortunately death. So the WHO, other Ministry of Health and other entities have already deployed a treatment and prevention center where medical professionals are trying to attend to the cases that arrive early enough.
All right, and lastly, I think we have time for one more. Now, from your reporting, how are local communities responding and, of course, to the government's health advice? Are we adhering with the protocols that have been put in play?
Yes, looking at the DRC is experiencing its 17th outbreak of Ebola. So the Africans is a very lengthy and very diversified experience in countering the disease and responding. And therefore, I believe that even though this strain is not yet the subject of clinical trials, but at least preventive measures and the standard of care being used to try and contain it.
Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we can't go further in this conversation because we are struggling to hear you a bit, but thank you for the insights that you've given us thus far. Now, we do go on a quick break, and when we return, we give you more right here on Breakfast Extra. You stay with us. You're welcome back. Now, with Children's Day fast approaching, national attention is once again turning to Nigeria's youngest citizens. But beyond the celebrations, a deeper and more troubling reality is emerging: early childhood development. Those critical first 5 years of a child's life remains one of the most neglected aspects of our national development framework, from poor nutrition to limited access to quality early learning, to weak child protection systems, and of course, inadequate policy enforcements. Millions of Nigerian children are being left behind before they even begin.
And the implications are far-reaching, affecting not just individual futures, but the social and economic trajectory of the country itself. So what exactly are we getting wrong? And more importantly, what must change? So to help us unpack this, we are joined by Mrs. Adironke Oyelaki, Lagos State Coordinator of the Child Protection Network. And I see what's on your T-shirt there. It's our responsibility, child protection. That's grand.
Right, thank you.
Mrs. Oyelaki, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, when we talk about childhood development, let's start there. What exactly do we mean?
So when we talk about child development, we are saying that children develop from one stage to another. And for anyone that wants to understand how children develop, you must pay attention to from birth to the age that they can begin to reason and do things by themselves. So it's very important to pay attention to that early childhood, which is from 0 to 5. That is when a lot are developed for the child to be able to understand and pick up even problem-solving skills at that age, because whatever is happening around them, they're taking charge of it. They're noticing every details at that young age. And that's where attachment comes in, because whatever you give the child at that age will speak along years ahead.
So we're not talking education, 1, 2, 3, and ABCs now. Yeah, that is important, but we're talking about a different kind of development. Is it? Am I correct if I say it's an emotional?
Yes, it's emotional attachment. At that age, if you see a baby, how would the baby recognize that this is my mom? It's from the interaction. That interaction says that the child begins to look at the face, constantly getting attached to the whoever is caring for that child. So if the child is not with the biological parent, for instance, whoever the child sees regularly, plays with, have conversations, not even verbal, but that emotional attachment, that child begins to recognize that I can feel a sense of safety, I can feel a sense of love and protection, and that child will naturally walk towards that person's personality, because that person is now having that interaction, social interaction with the child. So the emotional attachment goes a long way in shaping the child's understanding of what is around him or her.
Now, when we look at some of the gaps, what are the most alarming gaps that you have seen in early childhood care and protection in Nigeria?
That's what we have seen over the years, is the fact that we see children not given that opportunity to learn. I mean learn in the sense that if a child have a caregiver, for instance, and that caregiver is being distorted, as in that attachment is distorted, in the sense that if a child is used to a particular person, for instance, in the school system, you take a child from 5 months to a crèche. That child leaves the home and is getting attached gradually to another caregiver in the school environment. Whatever the caregiver does in school will go a long way in forming that child's developmental stages, in the sense that the child will begin to learn even from school, if they're given opportunity, maybe like toys, simulations, things that can help the child to begin to reason, to be able to talk in a manner that will help the child to know that when I'm in the school environment, I play, I see other children, I interact with other children in the same space. But when the child comes home, the child also feels the same. That is not only in school that the learning takes place and those interaction takes place. When the child gets home, the parents will also have to continue giving love, attention, and giving the child the opportunity to express herself, maybe through toys, plays, and other things around. Even singing, clapping, those are the things that helps the child to be able to understand its social environment. So if children are not given that opportunity to have that, a very caring, loving, and an atmosphere that can help them to begin to pick up what they need at that age, because children at that age, all they need is learning through the things they see, through plays, through stimulations, and things that can help them to begin to see how they can be a better person as they grow into the teenage age.
So are you saying that the gap is more so in the household?
The gap is more in the household, because children will start from the family. And that's why parents must have time for their children, because at that age, the child needs a very warm environment to begin to see, because what they see at that point will shape them. What they say at that point, which if the child is used to shouting, maybe the environment is always shouting, is hostile, is not a loving, caring environment, that child will begin to say, okay, maybe when I'm in the house, I noticed, because you are behaving in a way that is telling the child, where you are home, you experience this, where you are in school, you experience, so it's a difficult thing for the child to comprehend.
So what's the effect on the child?
The effect on the child,
especially in adulthood?
The effect on the child is that the child, when he grows up, have picked some behavior seen in the family, and that child will begin, for instance, if a child is in a family that is always having violence, maybe they're always fighting, the father and mother always fight, and they have issues with themselves. When the child grows up, the child is already used to that chaotic environment, noise environments, violence, physical violence, or all forms of violence. That child begins to believe that is a pattern of life, is a way of life. So whenever the child gets to school, we begin to see social behavior, antisocial behavior, that the child begins to inherit, behave in school, fighting other children, some behavior that they've picked from the home, they will take it over to the school, because the child will first be in the family before they interact in the school, in the community, and in the society at large. So whatever is done at home if the child is neglected at home, you can begin to see that child begin to feel withdrawal or begin to give tantrums and all of those things, and will later on affect other children, and it will be more difficult for the teachers to comprehend.
I'm curious, when we talk about neglect, because that's a very broad thing, you know, you've mentioned aspects of love, you've mentioned toys, you've mentioned attention. When we talk about child neglect, can you break that down for us? What does child neglect look like? Because a parent can come in here and say, no, but I provide for my child. I have a caregiver for my child. I take my child to school. The child has, in essence, the certain things that they need. The child wanted a tablet. I got that. We've got all of that. So what exactly does neglect look like?
Child neglect is broad. And when we look at provision according to the child right law, it says that every child must be given everything that he or she needs for his development, including shelter, including feeding, including all of those basic needs.
Right.
But most especially, the child must be given an opportunity to feel love. That's very key for children. Love, attention, even ability to participate, to talk, to have interaction. So when we're talking about child neglect, if you have a child that you have given birth to, it is expected that you first bond as a family. You must have a relationship, mother-to-child relationship, father-to-child relationship. That love unconditionally must not be in only providing physical needs. It must involve emotional needs. And that emotional needs are the parts that the children that we see that have most social anti-behavior are telling us that they lack this. Mother and father are doing a lot, working endlessly to feed the children, to care for them, but they never had time. Children need time to bond. And that time brings the trust and the safety and security that will help them to become what they will be later in future.
So the reason why I'm actually asking this, sorry, Mazino, is because amongst us as friends, I have myself 3 friends. 3 of us actually all have children.
Oh, what a very small world you have.
Mazino. 3 of us have children, right? But I work and another friend of mine works, but the 3rd friend is married, right? So she, in essence, is a stay-at-home wife. So she has more time than we do. But the similarity that I had with my friend Barbara was that, for example, when I had my daughter, I think at about 3 months or so, 3 to 6 months, I took her to daycare. So did Barbara. But our other friend who was married did not do that. She spent more time with the kid. And to a certain degree, we were kind of frowned upon because we took our children to daycare early. Would you have said that, in essence?
I wouldn't say that's bad, because we've seen that if the educational institution, including the daycare, can provide those supports that the initial parent could not provide. I also was in the same shoe. I had my 2 children early, and they went to the daycare early. And it is the duty of care for every organization or institution that has children to ensure that the protection of the children is number 1. That's the safeguarding of the children while in their custody, and also give towards that early developmental learnings. I mean, they must provide because it's like home from home. If you can find a place a child can go to and can receive the kind of attention you would have given as a mother or a father, and because of work or other things, you might not be able to provide that during those periods, and you can find a place that can do exactly or even better, then we can say that it's more like a caring.
So we didn't neglect.
Yes, you didn't neglect. That's not neglect, because they provide.
Got you off the hook that time.
They provided the same support.
You know, because I like that we're having this conversation, and we're kind of, I know I may be digressing a bit, and
but the time they spend in the daycare matters. For instance, if you leave the child morning till night, when you come back home, you're tired. So
I mean,
this have time to bond. So if there's a balance.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to, because again, like I said, I'm digressing a little bit. I brought this up because I think sometimes it's also quite important for us as women to also understand and find the balance towards what is neglect and what is not. Because there's so many hats that we wear, especially single moms whom we commend, where even you yourself will feel like I'm doing the best that I can, but to others it would still perhaps look like it would look like neglect, which is why I did then in turn ask you to define.
But there should be a balance. Because the time in school is totally different from the time at home, and children thrive more in homes, in families, than having that in school. So it's better you balance it.
Let's go now to the impact as an adult. And is it too late to change whatever might have gone wrong in one's developmental stage? Or what do we see it manifest as in early adulthood or late adulthood, and where can intervention come if we miss those developmental stages?
It's very critical for every child not to miss any of those developmental stages, because the effects is a longer implications on both the person and those that interact with such an adult. Imagine in the workplace an adult that has never felt loved, that was never given the opportunity to express his or herself.
What would they be like?
When
I want to hear.
They
this.
can be bullies.
I swear they'll beat you.
They can be bullies.
I'm not a bully, am I?
No, you're not.
They can be bullies. They can be very defensive. They'll be very defensive. They don't want you to come too close. They'll put boundaries, and they don't want to. They don't trust easily. They don't trust easily. They just do their own thing, and they're more like bosses that they just want to do their own thing. They don't want to listen to anybody. What they feel is right is what they do right. And they can be very aggressive, and they can be very violent because of what they've seen or they've been experiencing while a childhood, and has integrated into an adult, a dysfunctional adult that cannot understand between trust and safety and doing the right things at the right time. So it's very important for us not to neglect any stages of development. Even logical reasoning, you might not be able to reason well because that was distorted. And even in marriage, it will also play out in marriage, because as a child, you have missed that attachment of growing in a family, in a loving environment, and you were told to leave it from one room to another person. And because of that, when you begin to form attachment with this person, maybe your mom passed on, or your dad, or you have to move to a grandma's house, and grandma passed on, and you have to move to another person's house, that is distorted. And that person will not be able to love genuinely, because you feel when this person comes to me, is taken away within a sniper of time, and I will not be able to trust anyone again, and it will form marital difficulties.
How do they get help? What can they do? Is it possible,
Okay,
or is it a lost cause?
Yes, we have psychologists, we have social workers. I'm a licensed social worker. We have therapists across. We have
They have
counselors.
to go into therapy?
Yes, because we want to find out where you missed it, what part of the developmental stages you missed it, and how we can help you to be better. Because if you look at the systems you are now, the ecological systems, we see that, okay, was it at the school level, was it at the community level, was it even at the societal level, even at the family level, what are the things that we're missing? How are we able to take you back and bring you back to begin to align? It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot, but therapy can do the wonders, because the person has to understand that it wasn't your fault, either that you never had those love, those care, and all of those things you expected from a family. But now that you're an adult, it's your responsibility to ensure that you be a better adult, and you love yourself first, then your immediate environment do not suffer for what you've lost in the past, and begin to work from your present to the future. You can't change the past. So they can help you to navigate through those challenges to be a better adult, so that you can be a better adult in the society. Because you're going to be communicating with other people, interacting with other people at workplace, in church, in mosque, and even in your community. You can't be a nuisance. You see some adults fighting in the community because that is all they know all their lives. Arguments, as in, it's good to have conversations, but when you see some people, they are very aggressive when they are communicating, and they're like, before you know it, they are violent. It shows something was wrong.
What did you say?
Kilonfa, what brings this about? Oh, as you say in South Africa?
When's Zagandon?
There. So
an adult can be changed. How? Intentionally.
Can be changed?
Yes, intentionally you can change some of those things that you were used to and replace them with positive thinking, become a better adult. Yes.
It's interesting that we're having this conversation. There's a saying that I heard in Nigeria, which we downplay it, but as we get older, we find it to be true. And that's that thing where they say there is love at home. You know that thing where, I beg, let me go home, there's love at home. But I'm interested to find out, especially with what Mazino said about once you get older, how do you help somebody who did not have love at home?
How do you bring it up with them and say, hey, I think you need a bit of therapy?
I know.
I don't.
That conversation has to be very pure.
No, because you know what?
And it depends on the relationship.
Mazino, with this thing that you've just said, sorry to just butt you. A friend of mine was telling her husband, listen, you need to go to therapy. And we're in Africa, all right? And the man said,
I'm not mad.
The man said, it's not even, I'm not mad is better. He was like, I'm already in therapy. And she was like, oh, really? Who's your therapist? And he's like, myself.
An African man.
Maybe that could help.
So really, how do we navigate that? Because you find a situation where you do find men that really, really need love. And because they don't know how to give it to themselves, they insist that there is a way in which the partner needs to give it to them. And to a certain degree, I cannot do that. I cannot love you more than you love yourself. I mean, there are some ladies that attempt to do that. In the end, it falls back on them. But it also communicates something to them as well that feel like they need to overlove a person. How do we find that balance from a therapy standpoint and just an individualistic kind of thing? Because our relationships also now are very...
Yes, I would recommend, first of all, you have to be emotionally intelligent.
One problem to another.
The reason why I said that is because if you want to really help yourself, you must be able to understand yourself. How can you do that? You must come to terms with yourself, that this is who I am. And this me is not the best of me. I want to be a better me. And that's the decision you have to take intentionally. Then when you want to be emotionally intelligent, you will now tell yourself, I must understand and be self-aware. What am I self-aware of? I'm an angry person. I get angry easily. Is it true? Do I validate it? Is it true? Yes, it is true. I'm an angry person. Do I need help? Then you now begin to take the right steps. So you must first understand who you are. And that's why that self-awareness is very key.
Sorry, Mazin, I want to ask a question. I agree with what you said. But now, in all honesty, right? Because all of us have got we have different religious backgrounds.
Yeah.
Am I angry? What can I do about that? And then you'd find someone that says, well, I need to pray about it.
Pray? All right, so our responses are different because when something happens to us, the way we take it in and the processes are totally different. So if you call me mad, I'll say, okay, I'm not mad. The way I process it in might be different from yours. And the response I give will be from an informed decision that, oh, I don't care, you're not mad, but this person feels you are mad, so I don't need to act like one, so I'm not mad. But some people would think that because he's called me mad, the reaction they give immediately is spontaneous. And that could end with a slap, or a push, or maybe a violent behavior, because that is how they've processed it. So it's still on individual's personal decision. And that has to be helped through a therapist, and that's the truth. Because you need to first realize yourself. The person that told you that I can do therapy by myself, it's fine. You can come to the self-realization on your own.
Well, your own. It's often very difficult.
Most people do.
Often happens late in life when most of the damage has already been done.
But if you want to feel love, first of all, you have to be intentional about it. That, am I love myself? I must love myself before I can give. You can't give what you don't have.
Nope. There's the economical part of it. If you want to change this defect as an adult, how expensive is therapy?
Okay, so we thank God for Lagos State government. There are so many opportunities across board from different local governments. You can reach out to any local government, ask for the Family Social Services. They are there to help you. We also have the Lagos Minds. The Lagos Mind, they have psychologists, therapists, and all people that can help you to begin to have processed thoughts and have a positive thinking pattern that this is how to see myself and I can be a better human being. So you can do that as well. You can also reach out to we have them at the general hospitals. Go to any general hospital and tell them that, sorry, I need help.
I'm an angry person.
And they're going to... No.
You need to admit that first, honestly.
You do need to admit it. You need to be honest about it. I mean, being open.
Self-respect, self-introspection, I think, is one of the hardest things.
Most lacking.
Yeah, that we know how to do, especially as we get older. Because how do you tell a 45-year-old man he needs to reorientate himself?
Why did you end at 45? I don't like the fingers you're pointing at.
Are you 45?
I am 45.
Oh!
There are better ways to do that.
There's something in that age bracket, but I was not trying to throw shade at Mazino. I'm saying it because when we look at our age group right now, Mazino, if you are, especially from an adulthood standpoint, when you are engaging with people in general, generally that's the kind of age group, that we interact with and stuff. So you see these things so much so within the age range that you interact with. You might see it in...
Again, this finger pointing. Please listen.
No, but I mean, you might see it in 20-something-year-olds too, but I feel like they still have the ability
I think the
to,
older you get, the more self-aware you actually get, because you must have been in these instances that you find commonalities in the instances.
I don't agree.
Well, we've taken it from older age. Now we now tell children to be self-aware of themselves.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
From
If
younger
the
age, we
epiphany
can make
hits
them
you-
know.
If the epiphany hits you at 45, bro, come on.
You've crossed full at 40.
Do you understand? Like if by 20, 25, coming into 30, you're still trying to discover yourself and you're seeing your traits, good and bad and all of that. By the time you get to 45, you are comfortable with the kind of person that you are. And people make up the decision that says, well, I'm 45. It's either you take me as I am or you leave me, And it becomes a little bit painful. But Mazino is not that
Hey, you are protesting a bit too much.
He's not that kind of 45-year-old. He's a good guy. Mr. Oyo Lakin. I hope I said that right.
Yes,
yeah? Thank you so much for your insights. I'm doing better.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Give me harder names to pronounce. All right. Thank you so much again for your insights and for the work that you continue to do in protecting Nigeria's most vulnerable. Mazino?
Yes, indeed. I think this is where we say our goodbyes. And Aderoka, you get to say goodbye with us. We will be back again tomorrow. We're going to be having our very, very, of course, interesting monologue by Inam this time. And of course, we're looking forward to it. Please don't press the red button.
I'm pressing it tomorrow. I'm coming with the hammer. I'm pressing it tomorrow.
So watch out for our Sunday installment for Breakfast Extra. We can't wait to be here with you. Don't go anywhere. Programming here inside of News Central continues, as we'll be bringing you updates from the transition inside of Benin Republic with our correspondents there. And of course, inside of the primaries, as we look forward to it again in Nigeria here with the APC primaries holding. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.